The next big archaeological discovery could be hidden anywhere. Maybe it's buried in the sands of Egypt, hidden in a South American jungle, or maybe, just maybe, it's right around the corner in your city. We never know where they will appear. In this video, let's tell some of them. Number 1. Medieval ruins in Finland. Students at a school in Turku, Finland, were shocked in early 2018 when renovation work inside their school gym uncovered long-forgotten medieval ruins. Many of Turku's medieval ruins were destroyed in 1827 when a huge fire swept through the city and burned more than 3/4 of the buildings. The school was built after the fire, but we now know that the work was carried out directly on the remains of at least 2 medieval houses and a section of a street. Archaeologists believe that if they continued digging and also lifted the schoolyard, they would find more of the street and probably several more houses. The school is not very enthusiastic about that idea and would like the archaeologists to give them back their gym. Local authorities have also recently tried to find a way to preserve the ancient ruins without causing damage to the school. One possible option is to finish excavating the ruins, put the gymnasium floor back on top, and open an underground museum at the same time. Number 2. Medieval ring in Israel. In early 2018, gardener Dekel Ben Shitrid was tending plants in community gardens in the Galilee when he unearthed a small ring among the vegetation. He picked it up, cleaned it, and was fascinated to see a human figure engraved on its surface. Dekel was curious to know more about what he had found, so he posted a photo on Facebook and asked for advice. That's where it caught the attention of local historians and archaeologists, who were able to quickly confirm that the ring dates back to the medieval era and that the figure depicted on it is Saint Nicholas. That would explain why he has a halo and carries a bishop's crozier. Determining an exact age for the ring may never be possible, but it is likely that it was made sometime between the 12th and 15th centuries. Saint Nicholas is associated with Father Christmas or Santa Claus in the Western world, but during the medieval era he was the patron saint of travelers, sailors, merchants, and pilgrims. The ring most likely belonged to a pilgrim traveling to or from the coast, but it could also have belonged to a merchant. Number 3. Minya necropolis. Egypt's most famous ancient necropolis is Saqqara, which has yielded countless archaeological finds in recent years and will likely continue to do so for the next decade. However, it is far from the only notable ancient necropolis in the country. In February 2018, archaeologists discovered another in Minya, which is more than 240 kilometers south of Cairo. Although cemeteries have been found at Minya before, this one dating to the late Pharaonic period had somehow been overlooked until then, despite being much larger. Some of the tombs found in the necropolis belong to people known to Egyptologists, including the high priests of Thoth and their relatives. One of them is specifically named as Jehuti-Des, one of the 5 chief high priests of the deity, who is buried with no less than 40 members of his family and numerous figurines, examples of fine pottery and other funerary goods. So far, archaeologists have opened and fully explored 13 burial sites, with more to come in the future. Perhaps the Minya necropolis will one day be as well known as Saqqara. Number 4. Roman boxing gloves. Boxing has been around as a sport for almost as long as humans have walked the earth. It seems like there have always been athletes willing to fight each other for supremacy, and there have always been crowds willing to cheer them on as well. The first references we have to boxing as a sport date back to 3,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, but a recent discovery in Northumbria, England, has shown that the ancient Romans were also fans of this sweet science. Found at the Vindolanda Roman fort in the region, these 2 leather bundles are primitive boxing gloves and are around 1,000 years old. Although we know that the Romans liked boxing, these are the only 2 surviving gloves that have been found. It is thought that different units within the Roman army fought each other in boxing matches for bragging rights and supremacy. His friends were also known to enjoy betting on the outcome of combats. This particular pair was well worn and loved. Their owner thought enough of them to patch them up rather than throw them away, presumably only doing so when they were finally beyond repair. Number 5. Ancient Yukon Arrow. Yukon, Canada's northwesternmost province, is a surprisingly icy place. However, in recent years the ice has begun to melt, and as it does, it releases relics of the past. In January 2018, archaeologists in Yukon found a copper-headed arrow with the tip still firmly attached to its barbed shaft. The weapon is in near pristine condition, but is over 1,000 years old. It is one of the oldest copper artifacts ever found in northern Canada. According to Canadian historians, the arrow would have been shot by an ancient hunter looking to take a caribou home for meat. At the time it was fired, the arrow was a recent technological improvement. Until about 1,000 years ago, hunters in the region used throwing weapons called atlatl instead of arrows because the bow and arrow had not been invented in this part of the world. Number 6. Old chess piece. We move to Norway, where archaeologists think they might be getting closer to tracing the origins of chess. This 800-year-old chess piece was discovered in Tonsberg in January 2018. Tonsberg has always been of interest to Norwegian archaeologists because it is the oldest city in the country. The chess piece was discovered in the ruins of a 10th-century building and is believed to come from the same era. The artifact is made of antler and may have once had a lead support inserted into its center to ensure that it remained upright when placed on a board. What has sparked the interest of experts is the fact that the piece is designed in accordance with Islamic traditions, without human figures represented on its surface. The presence of the piece in Norway gives further weight to the theory that chess came to Europe from the Middle East, where it was definitely played in the 6th century and could date back even further. The lack of a human figure makes it difficult to identify the piece, but experts are pretty sure it is a horse. Number 7. Gonzo bracket. No matter where you live in the world, you've probably heard of the Muppets. They are probably the most famous puppet characters in history. If you've heard of the Muppets, then you've probably also heard of Gonzo, which means you might see a resemblance between Gonzo and this strange medieval carving. It was found during excavation of the Lincoln Eastern Bypass in Washingborough, England, in early 2018. While the resemblance to Gonzo is strong and undeniable, the correct name for this artifact is a corbel. It was carved during the 12th century and probably once adorned a chapel or church. Its appearance is a bit comical to us today, but in the 12th century its purpose was to terrify people. The person who carved the corbel hoped that those who attended the church would see it and be so frightened that they would abandon any thoughts of committing sins, lest they be attacked and devoured by one of these beak-faced demons. Making corbels is a tradition that was imported to Britain from France after the Norman conquest of 1066. It was the Normans who taught the British how to build their stone churches. Before that, they had mainly been made of wood. Number 8. Mysterious ancient game. We know that our ancient ancestors loved playing board games. Many of the board games we play today are based on games that were invented hundreds or even thousands of years ago. However, some of the games our ancestors devised are totally mysterious to us because they didn't think to leave the instructions for us to find. Take for example the board game that was found inside the tomb of a Germanic prince in Poprad, Slovakia, in 2006. The board is damaged but fairly well preserved, but that hasn't helped historians identify it. To the best of their ability, this ancient board game has no parallel anywhere else in the world. It is approximately 1,600 years old and is divided into squares like a chessboard. Green and white playing pieces were found with the board, but finding the pieces doesn't tell us how to use them. This is not unusual. We don't really know how to play the ancient Viking board game Hnefatafl, even though several modern board game experts have attempted to reconstruct the rules. We're also not sure about the ancient Roman board game Ludus Latrunculorum. Number 9. Buried treasures. During construction work in the town of Chaiyang, which is near Yingtan in Jiangxi Province, China, a surprising buried treasure of 300,000 copper coins was found. With very few exceptions, they are all yuan coins and were minted during the Song dynasty, which began in 960 and lasted until 1279. No one knows how the coins got there, but local folklore says it is the personal treasure of a mysterious landowner who buried everything under the foundation of his house 1,000 years ago. However, that is unlikely to be true, as the copper coins were not particularly valuable. There is obviously value in having 300,000 of them, but a landowner would have exchanged them for gold or silver bullion to make his wealth easier to manage and store. That raises the question of who really owned these coins and why they kept their wealth in copper currency instead of exchanging it for something more valuable. We will probably never know. Number 10. Leonardo da Vinci Tank. Italian Renaissance master Leonardo da Vinci has a strong claim to possessing the greatest mind in human history. The polymath was light years ahead of his time in art, science, biology, and sculpture, and it seems that he could also predict the future of military combat. Long before a tank crossed the fields of Europe or anywhere else in the world, Da Vinci had come up with a basic idea of what they might look like. He never built a prototype based on his design, but the fundamental principles are sound. Da Vinci's tank had space for outward-facing blunderbusses and a removable top section that could be opened to aid the driver's vision. The wheels were probably too thin to be useful in a muddy field and the axle crank design seems flawed, but we shouldn't hold that against it. However, this design is a basic blueprint for the future. In fact, a group of engineers were able to successfully build a working model of the tank based on Da Vinci's plans in 2010. Number 11. Old seismograph. It would be very useful to know when earthquakes are coming. Areas could be evacuated before a disaster occurred and numerous lives could be saved. We struggle to predict earthquakes here in the 21st century, even with all the wonderful technology we have at our disposal. And yet, the ancient Chinese were attempting to make such predictions during the 2nd century. They used devices like this seismograph made by Zheng Heng in the year 132. Although it might look like an elaborately decorated vase, Zheng Heng's device is incredibly sensitive and sophisticated. When placed on the ground, it can detect tremors occurring miles away, swinging a pendulum inside the artifact. If the swing exceeds a certain safety level, he releases one of the balls into the mouths of the dragons that are attached to the sides of the seismograph, dropping the ball into the mouth of a frog. This not only tells observers that an earthquake is approaching, but also gives them an idea of the direction it is coming from. It probably wasn't very accurate in terms of predicting directions and wouldn't have given much warning, but it was certainly better than no warning at all. Number 12. Sacsayhuaman, on the northern outskirts of Cusco, Peru, is a massive complex rising to an altitude of 3,701 meters. Built in the 15th century under the leadership of the Sapa Inca Pakakutec and his successors, Sacsayhuaman's architectural achievements continue to raise questions about the capabilities of prehistoric civilizations. The structure is famous for its colossal dry stone walls composed of enormous blocks cut so precisely that they fit together perfectly without the need for mortar. The precision is such that not even a piece of paper can slip between many of the stones. This technique not only highlights the Incas' advanced understanding of masonry, but also their ability to manipulate large stones to withstand the seismic activity that frequently shakes the region. The largest stone is estimated to weigh almost 200 tons, and the question remains: how are they transported and carved with such precision using the limited technology available in that period? The fortress's strategic location on a steep hill offers a commanding view of the Cusco Valley, suggesting its use as a military stronghold. However, the complexity and elegance of the stonework suggest that it also had a significant ceremonial role. The extensive plaza and large terraces with zigzag walls that imitate the teeth of a puma, along with the site's alignment with celestial events, show its spiritual importance to the Incas. The construction of Sacsayhuaman is notable considering that Inca builders primarily used bronze or stone tools. The Incas shaped the enormous stones with such precision that the walls have withstood centuries of natural disasters. Modern experiments, such as those at Deniceland, have attempted to replicate the precision of the Inca masons, but achieving the accuracy of the stone joints remains difficult, increasing the mystery of their construction methods. Over the centuries, Sacsayhuaman has suffered looting and destruction, especially during the Spanish conquest, when many stones were reused to build the colonial city of Cusco. Today, only the largest stones remain, too heavy to be moved, allowing us to imagine the original grandeur of Sacsayhuaman. In the modern era, Sacsayhuaman has become a symbol of cultural pride. It is the setting for Inti Raymi, the Inca Winter Solstice Festival, which attracts thousands of tourists and locals who come to see Inca tradition and pay homage to the engineering of their ancestors. Number 13. 5,500-year-old burial practices. Burying the dead with dignity was an important step in the development of our ancient ancestors. Funerary practices and rituals vary dramatically from place to place and era to era, but archaeologists are surprised by the sophistication of this newly discovered funerary site in southeastern Poland. It is a large row of megalithic tumuli that once contained 12 45-meter-long stone-lined tombs. The walls were supported by wooden palisades, one of which has survived to this day, with an entrance at one end and an atrium in the middle. This would have been a rather elaborate place for the dead to be buried and also for relatives to come visit them. Considering it was built around 5,500 years ago, it is surprisingly advanced for its time. However, it may not have been the final resting place of the people placed therein. Archaeological evidence at the site suggests that bodies were periodically removed to be replaced with new ones, so it could be that people were placed here for a brief period of mourning before being permanently buried elsewhere. Number 14. In the greenery of County Meath, Ireland, lies Grange, a Neolithic tomb older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. Built around 3200 BC, it is part of the Brú-na-Bóinne complex, a World Heritage Site that also includes the tombs of Knowth and Dowth. Grange is a large circular mound surrounded by stones engraved with megalithic art. The structure measures 85 meters wide and 12 meters high, and was built with approximately 200,000 tons of earth and stone from far-flung locations such as the Mourne Mountains and Wicklow. In the center of Grange there is a stone passage leading to a cruciform chamber used to bury burned and unburned human bones, suggesting their use in funerary rites. The passage is aligned to capture the winter solstice sunrise through a roof box, flooding the interior chamber with sunlight and highlighting the astronomical importance of the tomb. Archaeologists believe that Grange served a religious or ceremonial purpose, underlined by its complex art and architectural sophistication. The facade, predominantly made of white quartz boulders, and the presence of a surrounding stone circle further accentuate its ceremonial importance. The site's historical significance is deepened by its role in Irish mythology, believed to be a home to deities such as the Dagda and his son Angus. Mythological narratives indicate that Grange was not just a monument, but a central figure in stories of sovereignty and divinity, where the heavenly and terrestrial kingdoms met. Archaeological studies, especially those of Michael J. O'Kelly between 1962 and 1975, have been crucial in revealing the secrets of Grange. O'Kelly's reconstructions, such as restoring the front of the tomb to facilitate visitor access, although controversial, have helped preserve this ancient structure. Furthermore, Grange's art, with its engravings of spirals, arches, and geometric patterns, shows an advanced understanding of design and symbolism. These engravings, mainly on the entrance stone and gunwale stones, are believed to have ritual significance beyond the decorative.